And it was in 1994, and 74. And the movies we right now is relying on other agencies, such as county sheriff's office, county sheriff's office, big county,
I'm sorry, I just have to say, this is freaking ridiculous. Seattle police should not have the authority to bail people in the same police department that just shot a 70-year-old black child in his home. We're saying no. We're saying no to drones, and in the report it's talking about how the common use of drones is about surveilling people, but the common use of drones is used in Pakistan, in Yemen, to murder people.
Yeah, so that was pretty much the end of it. We got shouted down for the rest of the meeting, and it was supposed to be a community meeting to talk about the proposed policy. We hadn't deployed the drones yet, and again, they really aren't drones in the typical sense. They're little helicopters with a little camera attached, just off-the-shelf stuff. So what happened next? Well, as you can probably guess, people weren't happy with the program. And we're a police department, we're a public service agency, we serve the community. So the program was scrapped. And I did this post, we don't want any misunderstanding. Unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, flying robots, call them what you want, just don't call them ours. We ended the program on February 7th of 2013, and there weren't any plans to reinstate it, and it hasn't been brought back yet. We still have the drones, but more on that later. Who else has UAVs in their program, in their police department? Just one agency? There's a few. Okay, don't be ashamed. It's just technology. It's how you use it, and the policies that surround it. So clearly, Seattle, even though we are a leader as far as our early adoption of technology, the community wasn't ready for it. The policy that we had apparently didn't meet community needs, and no big deal. Back to the drawing board. So the person in this video, this is a New York Times op documentary, and this guy's local from Seattle.
I am very disappointed in your city of Seattle. The police department there has gotten approval of FAA to fly on an area. Otherwise, so drones. As a former KGB agent, I was so proud of them. But on February 7th, Seattle's mayor crushed the drone program with his iron fist. Now, the legislators in 11 states are looking into restricting drones' use of their skies. But this mayor provision uncovered confidential Justice Department concludes that U.S. government can use drones to kill American citizens on foreign soil if they are believed to be terrorists. That's more like it. I always thought that the part in the Fifth Amendment about not being deprived of life and liberty without duties of law was so restricted, like a wolf's feather that is two sizes too small, especially now at the age of missile shooting, flying robots. We would have killed residents. It looks like the Fourth Amendment won't be getting away here. In 1986, your Supreme Court ruled that foreign-class aerial observation did not violate the Fourth Amendment protection from unreasonable search and seizure. Therefore, any information collection from the drones could be used to incriminate persons. As to drones, will be daily visual reminder that American citizens now live in the militarized surveillance state. The Air Force, the FBI, Department.
All right, we kind of get the point.
The Army, the Navy.
Right, so that didn't work out so well for us. We kind of lost control of the narrative, and the narrative then shifted to this drone image of a airplane that has armaments that is capable of destruction, and for us it was really just about having something that resembled something you can get at a hobby shop. And the narrative shifted. We couldn't regain it. So for us, the benefit of deploying that technology, it just didn't match the damage that we were facing in the community as far as trust goes, and the relationships that were hurt as a result of us adopting that technology. So cost-benefit analysis, we scrapped it. So here in Seattle, traditional media relations, priority response to media requests, on-air interviews, call-outs, news releases, news conferences. Yeah, it's like old school. Seattle Times. Do the local news folks cover you guys a lot in your hometowns? Because we get covered a lot in Seattle. I remember the big city police department, and no big deal, but it's something that we upstaff for and we need to be prepared for. So everything in yellow are headlines associated with the Seattle Police Department, and yeah, that is the front page. So we wanted to do something different, and several years ago we went down a shift in kind of values in our response to the news, and we decided that we can't control what's covered. We shouldn't try. News is about the news, and news about crime is the news. We have the crime news before anyone else. It's our stuff, and we can distribute it directly to the public. And when I say public, I want to be really clear that the public for us is everyone. It's our own employees, it's our own elected officials, community members, community leaders. It's also the news media. So for us, everything that we put out goes to everyone, and then everyone can kind of choose what they want to do with it. We shifted from a media relations model to a public affairs model. And our audience, that's you. We have the tools to distribute the news directly to the public, right? It's called the internet. It works. The community deserves the news at the same time as the media. And we want to make our stories as accessible as news stories and let the media cover what they want. So again, it's just presenting a menu of options and being quick about it. So old school, new school. Our plan was to fully integrate digital communications and public affairs and harness the power of distribution. And we engaged with underutilized social channels, and we changed our content from more plain English to from the typical police speak jargon that we typically put out. So we hired a secret weapon, this guy right here, Jonas Spangenthal Lee. Hired him 2 years ago. He's a reporter who used to work for several outlets in Seattle. Probably one of my finest moments was recruiting him to come work for us. And the transformation we've had in our department, which was typically previously exclusively sworn to blending it into a civilian and sworn operation, has really been helpful in community engagement. So yeah, we use our channels like the news, and you'll hear some of those themes later in the conference too. And we relaunched our crime blog, the SPD Blotter, and did fun articles like this one. We had someone basically they damaged a tree, so the tree crime division went out and responded. This is our Twitter account. We just hit 60,000 followers in Seattle, which for us is a pretty big milestone. Guiding principles: be transparent, tell the complete story, don't leave out relevant details, include as much information as we can get, and then if we leave anything out, pretty much explain why. Tell the good stories, tell the bad stories. And why would we want to do something like that? Police department, big city, over 600,000 people. We're going to see a lot of stuff. We're going to do a lot of good investigations, but crime is inherently bad. People get hurt. It causes death, destruction, assorted mayhem. We want to make sure we're just sharing information, talking about the work that we're doing. And for the most part, the work that we do is kind of relationship neutral. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just government employees doing good government work. And when we do things that are exceptional, we want to make sure that we're promoting those things. And when we make mistakes, we want to make sure we're not hiding behind short-term statements. So basically owning it. And it's not that big of a deal when you say it, but the actual cultural shift is huge because it's completely different from what we've done in years past. So this happened last summer. We had a detective who we actually arrested for felony cyber stalking. He was basically harassing a girlfriend on Facebook and posting compromising pictures under a dummy account. And, you know, terrible crime. Unfortunately, is one of our employees. And we did the turnaround on the investigation in about a week. We worked with a neighboring agency, neighboring prosecuting attorney's office, and we were the ones who broke the news on this. And I would say in 2004 when I'd started, we wouldn't say a word. We would have just let it sit. We would hope that there weren't any diligent reporters in Seattle that were going through court docs, and we would deal with a calamity when it finally struck. And typically calamity would strike because the courts are open. It's an open process. People pay attention. And then we would be accused of covering something up. And you know, the lead would be, here's a story about the Seattle Police Department that they don't want you to know. And it would be an exclusive, and it would be just, the tone is different. When you're talking about an employee and you're having an opportunity to express your value as a government service agency, what the expectations are of all department employees, and here's a person who did something, and then fill in the blank, and what your agency is doing about it. You look strong, you look proactive, and you are still keeping community trust. So for us, this is a model that has been working. And of course, timely. One of the things in Seattle we try to do is just put out as many news stories as possible regarding our department. But we also understand that the news has constraints, and things that happened today or sometimes yesterday, depending on what it is, those things are interesting. Things that happened last week, not so much. So we want to make sure we're putting out timely information quickly. We use Twitter, and we just put out the basics, and then as we get more information, we'll blog it. Kind of like the news does. And this is one of those things where we had an active shooter in Seattle. Guy committed mass murder in one location and then went and tried to carjack a woman in another part of Seattle during his crime spree, and he killed her too. But we were basically in touch with our medical examiner, which is the equivalent of a coroner, and just got updates on his status. He committed suicide. So we put out information quickly. We can because we have access. We're the police. We have relationships with the medical examiner. It's not a big deal for me to give them a call. For a reporter to call, they may or may not get it depending on their sourcing, because typically, at least in our city, these updates would come out at set times. And for us, recognizing that this was one of the biggest stories / tragedies of the year, we wanted to make sure that when this occurred, we were doing everything we could to keep the community informed. It really put the entire city on edge. And in the same incident, it was basically a guy who had some, he went into a cafe. He'd been 86ed. He was upset. He had a gun, and he basically opened fire. And the people who didn't get out, he executed. He was kind of stopped temporarily when a gentleman who saw that this person was bent on death and destruction started throwing bar stools at him. And this guy actually saved his own life and saved the life of 2 other people who had a chance. While this guy was, bracing himself for the chairs coming, he wasn't shooting, for those seconds, and people were able to escape. So who got the first interview with this individual? We did. And we did it in a way that was sensitive. We coordinated with our homicide detectives to make sure that we weren't going to be doing something that would be improper. And we wanted to make sure that this person was in a condition to talk. So he was. We worked it out. We went through the proper channels on our department, and we were able to tell his story. And it was an amazing story. And just a part of a very grim, tragic episode. So for us, we absolutely want to be on all the channels that matter. And with us, social media, I mean, we started our social media journey back in 2008. I mean, we started blogging in 2007, got on Facebook and Twitter back in 2008. But for a long time, we were just strictly one-way news alerts, information push. And it wasn't really until 2011 that we explored two-way communication and engagement, and it's just been a tremendous opportunity for us. It's a little extra work, but not much. It's certainly not prohibitive, and we've been doing it since. And you know, our mantra is this is just community policing 2.0. This is walking the digital beat, and for us, we want to make sure we're going where people are. We're not going to set up shop in an area where no one's listening and no one's paying attention. That's not how you engage. So in Seattle, we tailor our social media to those areas where people have interest, and then we just engage them on their own home turf. So this is Seattle Reddit, and we got there last year, and it's been fun. We'd like to do more, but we do have a presence. This Tumblr. This is also something that we launched last fall. So, I mean, why have blog and why have Tumblr? Just because different people are in different places. Sometimes people are in all places, but we try to tailor the content to make it interesting. I think one of our favorite Tumblr posts had to do with horse poop. So we're a big city. We've got a mounted unit. Any hands for people who still have horse patrols in their city? Yeah. So horses, go horses. Horses are great for Facebook, right? So everyone loves animal pictures. With us, I don't know how it goes in other cities, but we, if we're able to, we'll stop and scoop. If we're not able to, we won't. Horse droppings are completely biodegradable, which is great in Seattle because we compost everything. But there are some people who I would say dislike us, and we use anything as an excuse to throw a few barbs our way. And in this case, someone took a picture of some horse poop and posted it on Twitter, and then did it again the next day and say, this is what it looks like one day later, why don't you guys come get it? So we basically did a full-on blog post on what we do, how we do it, when we clean it up, when we don't, and why it's okay, and why people should just be okay with that. So it was a nice outlet for us. It was done in a way that was respectful, but also a little funny and ironic, and it's, for us, the Seattle way. So yes, police work can be funny, and we try to take as many opportunities to be funny as we possibly can. But we also want to know our audience. We want to know what the lines are. And it's just not cool when you cross the line. I mean, policing is inherently serious, but we're also human. And I mean, there's just things that you cannot make up. There's things that just happen in our world that we get to see, and sometimes those stories are worth sharing. One of my colleagues at work says that we're all in the theater of the absurd, but in policing we have front row seats. So we want to make sure the content's engaging, and when we engage with people, we build that relationship, and that way when we have things that happen that are truly disastrous, those active crime scenes where there's real imminent threats to the public, we've got this built-in audience who can rely on us to put out information quickly. So it's just really navigating those fine lines. So a typical Seattle police headline: man on some kind of potent relaxant arrested for crashing kid's pizza party. Because, I mean, that happened. Another favorite: officers find panting dog, sweatpants wearing pig in hot, poop-filled car. Very intoxicated man ruins a perfectly nice evening at Denny's. So, I mean, burglar caught with over 100 packs of cigarettes will not be forced to smoke all of them. So yeah, it's right. So clickbaiting side, don't overthink it. The jokes will sometimes write themselves. So, I mean, if you see this picture, these guys on the left are the Rain City superheroes, because we do have our own superhero. Who's got superheroes, right? Someone? We've got them too. A whole contingent. So this tweet happened, and that was our May Day. Who has a fun May Day celebration in their city? Anyone? May Day, May 1st? I don't. It must be a Seattle thing. Anyways, it's been fun the last couple of years, but sometimes it hasn't been so fun. Share the less known stories, shine a light on the work that we do. That doesn't always make the news because good work by police, good solid detective work, good solid work by patrol operations, those don't always make it to the news, but they make it on our news because it's ours. And who loves it? The community does. Local blogs love it. People who are affected and impacted by crime love it. And it's not that much of a hardship. I mean, back in the day, we'd put out news releases. Now we're just blogging it. It's really not that much of a shift for us. This talks about our one of our gun burns, where these are basically just weapons that we've recovered from criminals, and what happens to those? We recycle the metal. And keep innovating, obviously. Tweets by beat. Who's heard of Tweets by Beat? Just a few. So for us, Tweets by Beat was born out of an idea that we should be sharing as much information as possible. Obviously, I support that. I remember one day I was talking to some of our local bloggers back when Seattle was seeing an explosion of community news sites, and the complaint was that the fire department shows real-time dispatch information. Sometimes it's associated with police because we get cross-dispatched, but we never did, and everyone got their information from the scanner. So fast forward, we did crime mapping in Seattle. I think that was 2009. And the way crime mapping works is it goes through our records management system. It populates the crime mapping page, and people can see with about a 4-hour delay what's going on in the city. I mean, there's a few things that are restricted because we want to make that we weren't impacting people adversely or having a chilling effect on crime reporting. So obviously for us, it was a no-brainer to not have domestic violence complaints mapped. We didn't want people to call 911 and then be fearful later that all their neighbors would know that there was a domestic in their home. So things like that we eliminated from the crime mapping. But it's just all information, and it's good information for people who are interested. And what we did was we took the same information and we rerouted it to 51 separate Twitter accounts that are basically automatically run, and the same information is populated. So if you live in one part of the city, you work in another part of the city, and your kids go to school in yet another part of the city, you can follow those 3 Twitter accounts and just see what's going on. And if you see the police cars come up on your street or the next block over, and go here, you can find out basically what's happening. If it's a really big deal, we're going to put it out on our central page. But if it's a minor thing like a minor collision or a car break-in, that's stuff that we'll put out, and the delay isn't that great either. Through the process of negotiation, we were able to get it down to an hour, which kind of satisfied our own officer safety concerns, but it also satisfied community and news desire for a quick, easy access to police information. And Get Your Bike Back. This is another Twitter account that is new as of last fall. And problems with bike thefts in your city, hands up if you got bike theft in your city. Lots of bikes. We get so many bikes in our evidence warehouse, it's ridiculous. We actually have to donate them, and because they're so big and they're hard to store. And people, they buy a bike, they spend a lot of money on a bike, they don't always keep the serial number, they don't register the bike, and then one day someone cuts the lock, it gets stolen, someone rides it for a while, they get bored, they throw it in a ditch, they throw it in a green belt, they throw it in someone's yard, and we have to come get it, and then we have to store it, and there's no way for us to get it back to its owner. In Seattle, bike riding is a very big deal, and people take it very seriously. So we wanted to use Twitter as a service to make sure that people who are crime victims would have another opportunity to be reunited with their stolen property. So Get Your Bike Back was launched, and with Get Your Bike Back, we basically will tweet out when we recover a bike that is found, because we don't know if it's stolen if it's not been registered with us. We'll tweet out some very basic details. So if I'm a Seattleite who has a bike that was stolen, but I didn't have the serial, I can watch this Twitter feed. I can look for a bike that matches mine, and then I can call our evidence section and say, I'm pretty sure that's my bike because that has a sticker, it has these scratches from my last wreck, and the tires are this kind of tire. And if it's the same bike, I can come down and pick it up. So it's pretty cool, and another way for people to get reunited with their stolen property. And for us, it's not much work. And in fact, the work of storing these bikes is immense. Being able to do this to get people an opportunity to be reunited with a property, it's a good PR win, and it's a good, easy thing for us to do. It's just another way that Twitter works for us. So be a person, not a machine. I talked about that. That's what we do. Thou shalt remain casual on social media. I mean, I'm 19 years with the Seattle Police Department. I'm guilty as charged. I've used these words. Subsequently, viewed or observed. Fight disturbance. We just can't get enough of the fight disturbances in Seattle. So we try to break it down into plain language because our audience, again, these aren't police reports. This isn't going to the courts. This is going on our blog, and it's being read by real people. So we want to make sure it's in real, easy language. So the other big piece, Doritos. Marijuana in Seattle is legal for the most part, right? Because the law changed. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to see a giant spike in use and some of the problems that might be associated with that. We wanted to be very clear with the public about our department's expectations in regards to the law and what our enforcement would look like. So we, like 2 days after the law changed, did this blog, Mara What Now? A guide to legal marijuana use in Seattle. It was written target audience in mind, so casual, fun, probably people who might read it might also smoke, and it was such a hit that it then expanded to people who probably won't smoke but are just curious to see how the police would respond. And in Washington State, a lot of other agencies in our state pretty much, it was just kind of a shock to see the law change that drastically. So there wasn't a lot of information going out, and for us it was a big deal. And being a major urban center, we wanted to, again, set forth some really clear expectations. And recognize that, hey, with a change in law, we're going to see changes in behavior, and our own behavior as the enforcers of the law is going to be reflecting that. And we just wanted to make sure communication was clear, and it really scored us some good PR. It scored us, I would say, enhanced relationships, and really earned the respect of some in the community who traditionally had seen us as kind of the enemy because of our responsibility to enforce the law. So 500,000 page views. Yeah, the J is still silent, so that hasn't changed. It's not marriage or what now. A typical marriage what now question. So I wish that was on YouTube. Marriage what now in French. So, and actually, that traveled the globe. It was South America, Europe, Russia, and it was, it's a big deal. It's a huge shift in enforcement and priorities in Seattle as opposed to the rest of the state. The law had passed overwhelmingly so. So yeah, we wanted to make sure we're hitting the right tone, and we did. Yay! So Operation Orange Fingers. This is our big Dorito giveaway. So in Seattle, we have something called Hemp Fest. It's a festival that celebrates hemp. It's also called a protestival, where people smoke pot, no less. So we wanted to show up and let people know what the law was. This was just months after the change in law, and we were, still engaged in our public education campaign. And this was a tricky one for us because it's a big deal, but we also wanted to make sure we weren't ignoring it because, it's Hemp Fest, people are smoking. So we decided we would go and hand out Doritos that our foundation purchased. We put these clever little stickers on them that have do's and don'ts. And the idea was that we would get people talking about the law. There were, what was the numbers? We had 1,000 bags of Doritos and over 100,000 attendees. I mean, we ran out in minutes. It was ridiculous. These were selling on eBay for over $50. So, but I mean, for us, this was a very calculated, very deliberate approach to Hemp Fest, and we secured the approval from the police chief, the electeds. Well, the mayor's office knew. We also floated the idea. I floated the idea past one of our journalists who covered pot in the city for one of our free alternative newspapers. And the idea was we wanted to be ironic. We wanted to talk about the law, but we also didn't want to be condescending. And with the change in law and public service in mind, we just wanted to make sure that people knew where we stood. Leaflets weren't going to cut it. Obviously, I mean, who goes to a marijuana festival and passes out government leaflets? I mean, what's going to happen to those? So this actually, we let slip just a few days before the event, and then it evolved. It got posted in the afternoon. It hit the AP. All the TV stations did it that night. It was on the Today Show the next morning. It actually made Jimmy Kimmel. So yeah, name checked on Jimmy Kimmel. Yay, that was cool. But for us, it was really about information, the law, what we want people to do, and gaining voluntary compliance, which based on our numbers, has happened. And when you can do that through smart, strategic public communication, that's a win. So we were happy. That's me. That's Jonah passing out Doritos. That's one of our tweets when we're done. So Adweek loved it. So did Rolling Stone. I mean, who knew? I never would have guessed. So yeah, is it working? Yeah, we're the biggest government agency in Washington State as far as Twitter goes. Well, actually, no, we just got passed by Washington State Department of Transportation. But third municipal in United States. That's pretty cool. And this is the growth. And as you can see here in March 2012, that's where we hired someone to come in and we did our strategic shift in communication. So you can see the growth there. And these are our page views. And we often joke that we should sell advertisement and then buy fancy gear for our office, but that hasn't happened yet. Yeah, 1.5 million page views in 2013. And we're 67% of the traffic for the entire city, and the city has 25 blogs. And that's traffic. Public response. And this is what it's really about. And this is actually, these weren't so cherry-picked. This is really typical of the public response that we've had. Tim Burrows, anyone recognize that guy? Hilarious and informative. So the Doritos, we actually submitted that to PR Week for their public sector campaign of the year. And we made finalists in December, and then just in March, we were told that we won. And that's Detective Mark Jameson in New York accepting the award. That was pretty awesome. We went against a lot of other government agencies who'd hired out PR firms. So ours was done all in-house, and again, on a shoestring budget. So what happened to the drones?
We have a top man working right now. Ooh. Top man.
Yeah, packaged them up and sent them off to a warehouse. I wish we had a warehouse like that. Unfortunately, ours is a little bit more boring. But yeah, I mean, so we got a lot of grief. We're still getting grief on the drones because we said we were going to give them back. And obviously, the joke was that we were past the return policy for Homeland Security. We lost the receipt, but we can joke about it all we want. They're not taking it back. And the money's been spent. We have to reimburse them, or some other government agency is going to take them. So right now they are truly shelved. And so when we had the public criticism of where are your drones, it's like truly they're in a warehouse, and I literally took this YouTube clip and tweeted it. So people appreciate the humor, but they also appreciate the honesty. So if you can do both, why not? So I think I've got just a couple of minutes for questions, like literally 2 questions. Excellent. Thank you very much for your attention.
Anybody have told me how to